Hey everyone, today I'm going to address a concept called ideological subversion, which comes from the USSR, and it was also used, similar tactics were also used in all totalitarian regimes, and it's part of the brainwashing agenda that governments have and they use against the population. So before I go on, I'm going to give a definition of ideological subversion, and this comes from Yuri Bezmenov, who is a USSR defector and has spoken out about it, and I've watched many of his lectures, and he talks about how the government in the USSR did this to their own people in order to brainwash them so that they could essentially demoralize them and then get them into a state where they could tell them what to think. So no need for critical thinking. Think what the government wants you to think and do what the government wants you to do. So the definition I have is directly from the mouth of Yuri Bezmenov, which is ideological subversion is to change the perception of reality to such a degree that despite an abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interest of defending themselves, their family, their community, and their country. So we've seen recently a lot of examples of this. Transgender agenda is one of them. Despite the many fact-based evidence that there are only two genders, there has been a mounting ideology that claims that there is infinite amount of genders, and even if you were to go to somebody and present them all the facts and all the biological data, and you would have a medical doctor attest to it, they still wouldn't believe you. So that's when somebody has reached that point of subversion that even faced with facts, they can't even admit that that they could be wrong and that there could be another explanation. So we're seeing that advance a lot in our society in Canada, and it's not just here, it's happening in the US, it's happening in Europe. So anyways, I'm going to jump right into what it is that has happened in the last week. So after the whole week after the Danforth mass shooting done by an Islamic soldier, we have seen time after time the ideological subversion the Canadian government is trying to throw on us. Now, just like Yuri Bezmenov would say, this is done in the open. They're not hiding it. They're doing this right in front of us, and it's just about how we can recognize this. So this is what the goal of this video is to help you recognize when you are being submitted to this kind of subversion so that they're trying to change the way you think. So the first thing I have for you is the week of absence. Now, the Canadian government they do everything is calculated for the most part. They calculate things. They try to do they make moves that are strategic in every aspect that benefits the UN or the globalists. If it's anything else, they have slip-ups and they do dumbass things. But for the most part, when they're playing in front of the UN theater, which is what this attack, just what they did after this attack, everything is calculated and strategically planned out. So there is that week of absence that Trudeau disappeared for. Everybody called him out on that. Everybody noticed, and what he said, what he was saying through that is, even though we have just uncovered a massive Islamic plot that was carried out with potential additional biological warfare weapons that could threaten us at a national security level, I, Trudeau, am going to stay outside of the spotlight and ignore this whole situation, and I'm going to do that on purpose to show you it's not that important. It's not important. So that week of absence is really a signal and a message to us that he doesn't want to address the situation, and he's not going to show us that he's going to give any attention to the fact that it was an Islamic attack. Now, he doubled down in that week of absence by having his government issue via the CBC that the only thing that came out that whole week is that he's going to go have brunch with some LGBT star. I don't even know who this guy is. I don't give a crap who he is. But it shows you that the government, instead of addressing actual national security's issue, is more concerned with addressing LGBTQ double XP rights. Now, you've seen videos. If you've seen videos I've made before on this, I'm not attacking people who are part of the LGBT community and their friends. I'm a little upset with the stuff they're doing and their lifestyles and all that, but as long as you're not hurting other people. But for the most part, I'm very upset with the ideology because it's being pushed everywhere as if it's facts, and that is where my opposition lies. So anyways, the LGBT agenda, I'm sorry guys, but it is not important right now, and we shouldn't even be considering it in the wake of the fact that we are under direct attack and we are actually at war with jihad terrorists who are in our country. Another one that I've noticed is Trudeau went yesterday to the memorial, and he brought a bouquet of flowers. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen the bouquet of flowers, but it was the ugliest thing he could possibly get his hands on. And now, Trudeau would not have done that if it wasn't a message. He knew everybody was going to be on him. The cameras were going to be on him. This was going to be distributed across all the news networks. So the fact that he chose the ugliest bouquet he could find, there was still the elastics at the bottom. It was just tacky and ugly. And in comparison to the flowers that were actually at the memorial already, there was beautiful orchids all over the place. I saw huge bunches of red roses, pink flowers, like beautiful, beautiful things that were laid there. And he shows up with this hideous, awful looking bouquet that he probably got for sale at $6.99 at the Walmart or something. That's what it looked like. And that was intentional. He was sending us a message with that. He was sending us a message that I'm here for the very bare minimum. I'm going to do the flower thing because I have to. I don't want to, but I'll do it anyways. But because I want to show you I don't want to be here, I'm going to pick the ugliest flowers possible. Now, other people had to pay for their own flowers, right? So people had, they out of the kindness of their heart, out of the sorrow they felt, they went in and bought beautiful things. Trudeau goes on massive vacations. He splurges on himself. So you're going to tell me can't even buy a red rose or something prettier than the ugly ass bouquet he showed up with. Don't be fooled. That was a blatant statement to all of us that he's there, but he doesn't want to be. Now, another very important one is how the CBC throughout the week, and not just the CBC, but CP24, National Post, anybody on the left-wing media, used the whole week to, in a way, glorify the family of the guy. So to excuse the events and to try to get sympathy for the family of the jihadi terrorist who died carrying out this attack. This is normalizing the death that we saw on our street. They're trying to make it seem like it's okay, you know, it's okay because that family was good. Not only do they do a disservice to the entire Muslim community, because now we're left thinking, well, that guy was nice, according to the CBC, he was kept to himself but was nice. Well then, what do we do about all the other nice Muslims we have, right? So you can see how the CBC and all of the left-wing media essentially went and screwed over the entire Muslim population in Canada. So yeah, thanks for that, guys. But on top of it, they are normalizing the situation in an attempt to make us feel like it's not that bad, right? Where we really have to remember, this was a jihadi terrorist attack. This is horrible. There's one that we saw. There's 100 more we don't know about yet. They're coming our way. This is an act of war. And we cannot be normalizing this. Can you imagine if you go back to September 11th, I think anybody who lived through that remembers exactly where they were when we saw those images. And right after, they condemned everything. They came out like, Bush came out and condemned it. A week later, he retracted a little bit, but at least initially, he condemned it. And it was like, we are going to get the guys who did this. This feeling is gone now. And now we have jihadis attack us on our own soil. They kill our girls. And what we say is, but their family was so nice, right? Like, inexcusable. And this is part of the subversion. This is part of the ideological subversion where they don't want you to recognize when an event is truly, truly evil and bad to its core. They're normalizing it to bring it up to a level of, it's okay, right? And this is a very, very dangerous way to think about things. We have to remind ourselves, this was a jihadi attack. The girls died because the Canadian government let in these jihadis, does not monitor them because they want to be so politically correct that, and they don't want to be accused of being racist. The police doesn't want to be accused of racism, is not interfering as much as they should. And because of that, because of this culture of politically correctness, because of the advance of Islam, we now have dead girls on our Canadian soil, and more are it's gonna happen again. It's very, very unfortunate, but this jihad is not gonna stop magically because, you know, this community came together, right? So anyways, the CBC normalizing this event is a very, very scary thing, and it should really alarm a lot of people out there who didn't think we were being manipulated to realize now that we are. Now, the last thing I want to bring up is the fact that Trudeau went to the memorial, and he, after laying down the flowers, he did the cross, right? Now, Trudeau, since he was trying to get elected, and even after that, since 2015, he has not once said anything good or positive or visited a church in a very public way. He's been focusing on Islam and getting accepted in that community. So he's been going to mosques, he's been dressing up like a Muslim. And when you see him do the cross, again, don't be fooled. This doesn't mean, the goal of that act, the goal of him doing that is to say, look guys, I'm also a Christian. He was in the middle of a Christian part of town. That's what he was saying. And that is designed to make you think, oh, maybe he's not aligning with Islam. Maybe he is a Christian. Don't be fooled. His every past action, the amount of money he's giving in, the fact that he's not even allowing refugees to come in that are Christian, he's only allowing the Muslim ones. This was an attempt to make you think that you don't have to worry about Islam anymore because he is accepting of every culture. The reality is unfortunately not that way. He is fully endorsing, covering up, paying the Muslims, specifically jihadis, and bringing more of them into our country. So there you go. Those were the events that I think in the last week have been used to do the subversion of Canadians. Now, all these events were orchestrated by the puppeteers behind him. This was not Trudeau who came up with any of this stuff. However, we did see a glimmer, a small glimmer of the actual true Trudeau. And anybody who didn't think he was a puppet before, this maybe is going to convince you. But during his speech at the memorial where he was heckled, the first thing he said when he was heckled is, "This is not the place and time." Well, you know, the girls died because of political Islam, and they also died because Canadian government failed to protect them. So the entire event, all of it is political. This entire thing is political. So unfortunately, this is the time to talk about it. There is no better time than when people are gathered together and we're trying to address a problem. So, okay, but let's assume for the sake of argument that it's not the time. So he tells that to the guy. He tells that to the heckler. Not the time. So the police remove the heckler, and a few minutes later in his own speech, he said, oh, this reminds me of when my brother died 20 years ago. It's the 20-year anniversary of my brother's death. And then he goes on into how he misses him and all that. Look, this was a slip up from Trudeau. This wasn't the puppeteers behind. This was, you see, a little bit into the life of Trudeau himself. When he thinks by himself, this is what he does. So this shows his narcissistic side. This shows how he has very little compassion for other people and is truly unable to make an event about somebody else. Every time he shows up somewhere, it's a photo op. It's about making him look good, and it's about making his story live to the whole world, like we're somehow watching like the Trudeau show or something and we care about this. Every family has sorrow. Every family has dead members, family members that we commemorate every year. But you know what? When you're the Prime Minister of Canada, you don't bring up your own family, personal, private life at a funeral for a girl that you failed to protect through your actions. So anyways, guys, there you have it. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next one.